Okay, good afternoon, Tigers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's feature talk. And the CTU Tiger is a program that we specifically designed for our elite students, performing students, they're top of their class. We offer different activities, events for them to enhance their potential, to make sure that they will excel, not only in the years that they're with us at CTU, but also, hopefully, they'll pave the way for the future success. And one of the activities that we are organizing for our students is the Feature Talk series. And today we are very glad, excited to have Dr. Denver Lee from the Department of Physics of our university to give a feature talk to us. So maybe a bit of introduction first. Dr. Lee obtained his Bachelor of Engineering in Zhejiang University, and then he did his Master of Philosophy, MPhil, in Hong Kong actually, in the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. And then he did his PhD in the Department of Quantum Matter Physics at the University of Geneva and obtained a PhD in 2016. He was under the supervision of Professor Jean-Marc Driscoll. And then he picked up a Swiss National Science Foundation postdoctoral fellowship and did his postdoc with Professor Harold Huang, a very famous scholar, both of them actually, in Stanford University. So Dr. Lee's research interest spans from condensed matter physics to material science, with a focus on atomic scale fabrication of oxide heterostructures, nanomembranes, synthesis of unconventional quantum materials, which I really would like to learn, low-dimensional superconductors, oxide interfaces for emerging states, etc. So there are two remarkable points I would like to highlight for our speaker today. Number one, in the year 2019, our research team led by Dr. Lee and his supervisor, Professor Huang, discovered the first nickelate superconductor. Nickelate is, with my limited knowledge, is the anion form of nickel. So this is unprecedented, and it was in a search for many, many years, more than 3 decades, and they are the first team to discover that, which is a great achievement. And because of that, Dr. Lee was named to the list of 2021 MIT Technology Review, 35 innovators under the age of 35, which is a remarkable achievement. The second point I would like to mention is that very recently, Dr. Lee has obtained or been awarded a Collaborative Research Fund, CRF, offered by our Hong Kong Research Grants Council, which is extremely difficult, extremely rare, exceptional, I would say, for a junior faculty member to have that accomplishment. So that is one of the things that we are very proud of him to be our faculty members in the Department of Physics of our university. So again, today we're very excited to have him with us to give a feature talk entitled Hunting the Ghost, My Research Stories Behind the Scenes. Without further ado, would you please join me in welcoming Dr. Lee?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ken. It's always a great pleasure to speak in front of so many students, young faces. Okay, it's been long that finally we could return to classroom to have featured talks, right? Symposium, conferences, etc. So it's really a rare opportunity and honor for me to stand here and share with you. Maybe we could do some story sharing later in my talk today. Share with you some of my experience and stories behind the research lines that I've been following. Okay, so thank you very much, Ken, for the nice introduction. So I'm Denver Lee from Department of Physics, currently a system professor working on oxide quantum materials. So this is an abstract picture of my lab today. So we're looking at a laser molecular beam epitaxy growth system in conjunction with an E-beam evaporator system. So in this system, we can, in an ultra-high vacuum environment, we can grow oxide thin films, and we can also grow metal layers, okay, layer by layer manner. Okay, so maybe a further few words about myself. As you noticed from the introduction, that I have a really very interesting trajectory. during my research life. So I did my undergrad in China, mainland China, and then moved to Hong Kong afterwards for my MPhil degree. During my MPhil study, I had the opportunity to do a research attachment program to visit Geneva for 6 months. So after that, I stayed over for my PhD time. So my PhD actually took a little bit long, more than 5 years. And so in 2016, I graduated and took on a fellowship to go to Stanford for my postdoc. Okay, so with that, I could say very safely that I have research experience in different continents. So I had the opportunity to establish collaboration, a strong network with international top researchers. And my interests lie in between condensed matter physics and material science, etc. On top of that, I have a lot of hobbies. Okay, so probably not good to show my students who are here today. But I do like a lot of sports like badminton, tennis, ski, golf, snooker, as you can name it. All right. So one interesting thing is that during my master, we, as a graduate student, a postgraduate student team, we won the first runner-up, which was the history for when I was in PolyU. Okay. All right. So next slide, I'm showing my group here. So as you can see, they have happy faces. Although sometimes I pressure them a little bit. Hopefully you understand after my talk today. And then we have two big toys. One I already explained. The other one is so-called a dilution refrigerator, which can go down to a millikelvin temperature. Okay, so you can really measure materials down to 20 millikelvin. Okay, so just a very small portion of a Kelvin. All right, so before we start, let me define the title, okay? Where are the ghosts? What are the ghosts? Okay, before I do that, let me just show this very interesting small video made by my colleague, wonderful colleague.
Ghosts are everywhere in
This is
everyone's
made
life.
by AI.
They could appear as your one careless mistake, an impulsion for a life-changing decision, a sudden flash of insight, a notch moment under the spotlight, or a mind-boggling discovery. They are hidden in the details and buried under the surface.
Okay, so what I see as ghosts, I list some of my understanding. Okay, so it could appear in your life as one careless mistake that you make, you probably neglect, but they're important, and one intentional move or behavior that you don't plan to do. Okay, and some linking points. What are the linking points? Probably I'll show you in my story. What are the linking points between different incidents or even different time periods? And you need to do some self-reflection. So I found that through self-reflection, you can find some points or some things that you do not understand or do not look at usually. There are hints usually in your experiments, in your life, right? And a flash of insight, sudden thoughts, notch moments. Notch moment means that if you're under spotlight, for example, for 1/2 a second, that you don't know what to say, right? So a signature of a discovery. So that's the important part if we talk about research, because research is all about making discoveries, right? That's the incentive, let's say, or the ultimate motivation. All right, so I'm not a kind of person that threw out values through the talk, so I will better throw out at the beginning of the talk some values before I share real stories, okay? So through this talk, I would like to convey 3 important messages, which I believe are the killing factors for having a successful research career. The first one, details matter. This is easy to understand. Okay, so as Steve Jobs mentioned, it's worth waiting to get it right. So please get it right whenever you do research. The second thing is ask not what cannot be done, ask what you can do. All right, don't make excuses for yourself that, okay, this is not doable. Right? You always try to find a way to solve the problem. And third, don't blame others, blame yourself. Okay, so I don't know if this is true. It may cause depression to some people, but at least to me, this is something my father taught me since I was a child. Okay, so I think this really made a very positive impact on my life, or research attitude. But overall, I would like to mention that I think throughout the talk, one take-home message that I would like you to have is that details matters. So I'll explain in more details, okay, through the stories. Before we start the story sharing, I would like to just give a very broad introduction on what I do, since we're on a research talk. One of the key topics that I touch upon is superconductivity. Okay, so on this slide, I'm gonna read some very classical definition about superconductivity. On the next slide, you will see why they are interesting and important. Okay, so I cropped this sentence from the Department of Energy of the United States. It perfectly explains what is superconductivity. Superconductivity is a property of certain materials to conduct direct current electricity without energy loss when they are cooled below a critical temperature. So in other words, their resistance is zero, okay, below a certain temperature. And on top of that, these materials also expel magnetic fields as they transition into the superconducting state. So I would consider this definition is very rigorous because indeed, if you want to publish a paper claiming superconductivity in the materials, the editors will ask you to demonstrate two things. One, zero resistance, but not only that, you need to show that your material expels magnetic field. Okay, so these are two independent things which are important. I'll come back to this later. And from physics point of view, since we're in an era of a quantum information, quantum materials, superconductivity actually from the very beginning is a macroscopic quantum phenomenon. What is a macroscopic quantum phenomenon? It means that something you can see by your eyes, but it actually comes from a quantum mechanical effect, right? So usually for students who are not in physics, usually we see a quantum mechanical effect as something happens at very microscopic scale, right? When a system becomes smaller, we talk about a quantum mechanical effect. However, superconductivity is a very good manifestation of a quantum mechanical effect in a macroscopic level. All right. Now, why superconductivity is important? Okay, so if you ask the question to the people in the movie Avatar, they probably will explain better, right? So in the movie, you see all these floating lands or whatever, rocks, right? They're actually made of one particular material. In the movie, it's called unobtainium, right? I think it's still unobtainable, except recently there are people claiming that they found the room temperature superconductors, right? So these materials are superconducting by nature, so they can expel magnetic field, right? In normal planet, because of the spin or self-rotation, you can generate a magnetic field. These magnetic field can expel these superconductors, right? So they're floating. So this is perfectly in line with this typical picture that we see if you search on Google. If you search superconductivity, this will be a typical picture that you see, like a magnet floating, right, on a superconductor. Right, except that in Pandora or in the movie Avatar, what we're talking about is room temperature superconductor. However, on our Earth, on our planet, so far we only have low temperature superconductors, right? So one of the goals of the research is to try to hunt for room temperature superconductors. Actually, I searched a little bit in preparation of my talk. I found they have Amazon toys for these unobtainium. You can actually see a small magnet floating, right, to show to the kids, I guess. All right, when you look at a superconductor, if you measure resistance of a superconductor, this is something you should see, okay? Please be reminded, as I would like you to remember this, because this is a really typical signature of a superconductor, right? Your resistance drops and down to a certain temperature before it hits zero. Okay, so there's a sharp transition, at a critical temperature we call TC, suddenly you lose the resistance completely. All right, so this is a hallmark of a superconductor. Another key aspect of my research is oxide material. Okay, so the oxide material, people study oxide material with the hope of one day that it will replace silicon. Okay, we have different problems with the silicons or a different limit of the silicons. We have been working hard on different material system in order to replace silicon, or let's say revolutionize the electronic industry. So one of the materials that has motivated everyone is the so-called oxide. So from fundamental point of view, all the way to application point of view, there are many interesting stuff that we can study and learn on these material system. Okay. So in particular, we have one family of oxide system, which is called perovskite oxide. They can display many interesting properties such as ferroelectric, ferromagnetic, etc. So I don't want to go into the details, but what you need to know is that these materials, they share a similar structure. As a result, you can really grow them together just like playing Lego game, right? You can just assemble them piece by piece. These so-called heterostructures can give you something that do not exist in their bulk form. All right, so this is a so-called oxide heterostructures that I'm currently working on. So the crossing point between the two fields that I just mentioned, the superconductivity and oxide material, actually reached the headline in 1986, where these two famous scientists discovered the world's first high temperature superconductor, which is a copper oxide. Right. Starting from that, we had so-called a copper age of a superconductivity, really ignited the community with a hope to find superconductors with transition temperature towards room temperature. All right. So this mind-blowing discovery actually initiated a very long marathon discussion in the next year's American Physical Society March meeting. The meeting actually lasted until 3 a.m. in the morning, so that everybody was sharing their latest discovery in the lab. What kind of new materials that you found, okay, on the copper oxide. So this became a so-called Woodstock for physicists. The Woodstock is a kind of a rock music concert. So it's really a fantastic gathering for condensed matter physics. Okay. What is interesting or new about these superconductors? I list the three of them. One is that it is the first material family which has transition temperature above liquid nitrogen boiling point, right? So remember, some of you may know the history about superconductivity. Superconductivity came out from, let's say, let's say achievements that we can liquefy helium, right? So up to this point, all the superconductors become superconducting, right, below liquid nitrogen boiling point. So this is the first material class. And then people start to dream about room temperature superconductivity, which is regarded as holy grail problem for condensed matter physics and material science, and really showed physicists that nothing is impossible, because at the point, nobody actually, well, few people actually thought about using copper oxide, using an oxide material, which is usually a ceramic rather than a metal, to make a superconductor. Okay, so it's really a case study for condensed matter physics for discovering new materials. And this field now has evolved into still a very active field in condensed matter physics, marked by a very complex superconducting phase diagram. To avoid jargons, I'll probably stop here on the copper oxide family. So since 2008, Professor Hosono in Tokyo had discovered another family of a superconductor, which is so-called iron-based superconductors, right? So there are also interesting things living in these material families, such as magnetism living together with superconductivity, which is quite a shock, because usually we believe that magnetism is a detrimental or killing factor for superconductivity. Okay, so these are the beginning chapters for high temperature superconductors. So if you could take a pulse and start to imagine what we can do with these materials, that you can really reduce, for example, energy consumption. You can really make maglev trains or devices using superconductors. If you could really make high temperature superconductors workable, or even room temperature superconductors. So my contribution to this field is that since 2019, as introduced by Ken, that my supervisor and myself at Stanford, we discovered the superconductivity in the nickelate compound. As a matter of fact, nickelate was the first compound these two Nobel laureates looked at the beginning. They quickly dropped the idea because they thought it's not going to be superconducting, right? And after many, many years, people start to believe that it's indeed impossible to get superconductivity in nickelates. However, in 2019, with the materials discovery, we completely reversed the field, and now it becomes a very active field of hundreds of papers have been published, and many theorists working on the mechanism of this superconductor. So two things I would like to mention. One, this material family presents a very significant challenge in material synthesis. Two, indeed, there are a lot of ongoing research activities in this field. Okay, maybe if I have time, I'm going to play this to explain this thing better, rather than myself talking about it.
Harold Wang and Denver Li.
So this was
recently
a short
discovered
video
that
Slack
nickelate is
National Lab
indeed
made for us.
superconductive. When asked by Harold's 9-year-old daughter, "How did you uncover this and how does it work?" Harold went on to explain that it's kind of like removing a layer from a Jenga tower. Here is Denver explaining the experiment.
When you play Jenga games, you need to be very careful about pulling out these blocks, right? So in real experiments, we also used a very gentle way, which we call it soft chemistry. That is a process which allows us to take oxygen blocks out.
By removing these oxygen blocks, among other steps, Denver and his team had created a thin film of nickelate, and it was in these strips that Denver made the discovery that the material was superconducting. This is the first in a new family of superconductors that will help scientists like Harold and Denver figure out how they work.
Okay. Good. So the key is actually use a very special chemistry method. So this is what interdisciplinary research can give you, right? It can bridge chemistry and physics to generate something new. So I'm going to be quick on this. So after that, first signature of superconductivity, we had made other discoveries were related to this material system. So in the end, it's still a very challenging material problem. So far around the world, there are only a few groups which can do this, can grow this material. So it's reproduced, but still not many groups can produce the samples. All right. So, and by the way, most of the teams actually are based in China. So they're really doing a great work on this. All right. So with that, I was awarded the Innovator Under 35 by MIT Technology Review, and it's worth mentioning actually at CTU, actually we have 2 recipients that year. The other one is Dr. Wang Cheng from EE. All right, so now is the time for real story sharing. So I would like to come back to how we made the discovery, all right, and show you some signatures or hints that I believe there are ghosts around me, right? I do believe so, okay? First picture. So this is can somebody tell me what it looks like? This is a superconducting transition that I ask you to remember, right? You have right? So this is during a morning walk at Stanford. I by accident found this on the road. Okay, so I immediately posted on my WeChat circle something like, have you ever seen a superconducting transition in your life? And something in my mind, and only through the eyes of a true scientist may a nobleman see the manifestation of God's revealing. All right. So I thought this is good as signature, right? Because I was working on the project, hoping to find superconductivity. All right. So this is the first ghost I would like to share. This is a true story. Quite surprising. And they look similar, right? So this is the resistance data of the first sample which showed superconductivity in nickelate compound. And you can see that nature always award hardworking people. This was obtained at 2 a.m. in the morning. So I was very excited. I couldn't sleep. The next day morning, there was a group meeting. And so I immediately jumped into the group meeting, and it was not my time to report. I said, I'm going to present something like a breaking news, right? Just show a graph. Okay, so this is the raw resistance data. You can see the signature of superconductivity, but it's far from being zero resistance, I should say, right? So this is a picture I took during that night on our measurement system. So this is what you see. I was quite excited. You can see in my happy face, although very tired next day, but my happy face. And we had a very happy first week for a very simple reason, because we got a warning that finding signature of a superconductivity, from finding a signature of a superconductivity to true zero resistance, there is a long way to go, okay? There were examples in the history that people spend years of optimizing materials in order to get a true zero resistance, right? So we were warned. Luckily, in the first week, we already got a zero resistance, right? So very happy. But after that, it was somehow long, painful 8 months before we can reproduce the data. So we lost the growth condition very easily. We couldn't get it back. Okay. During the time, we burned 2 excimer lasers, each worth about $1 million Hong Kong dollar, and changed growth chamber 3 times, burn an X-ray tube, and move the XRD machine. For people who work on very delicate machines, you understand the meaning of moving, right? So if you move one floor up, then you lose the precision completely, right? You need to spend time in re-optimizing or realigning the machine. And then we form a team of 4 persons working day and night. And our day usually starts at 9 a.m. and ends at 2 a.m., right? And we've grown more than 300 samples. Okay, so this was I believe, the first sample that we actually could reproduce superconductivity. All right, so during the time, I had all kinds of ridiculously unhealthy food just to ease myself, to keep my energy up. So you can see like a Trump type of ice cream, a ridiculous amount of junk food, etc. All right. So finally, on 29th June 2019, this paper was submitted to Nature, and about a week after we get accepted the paper. All right. So it was probably the fastest, one of the fastest acceptance during the Nature review process. And then we got interesting emails. I just threw out 2 examples. A very famous guy, Mark Beasley at Stanford, he said a cautious congratulations to raise different issues or potential questions, but he was also very happy about that. And then I started getting emails such as, hey, Dr. Denver, I know the recipe of room temperature superconductivity. You want to talk to me or something? Like emails, like junk emails. Okay, so after that, I gave talk, and in Japan, everybody was interested. And then after the paper was published, suddenly, the sky looks bright again at Stanford. And my colleagues made a very interesting mug to me as a gift, nickelate superconductivity. And actually, material suppliers start to follow us. They start to sell targets of these materials, they mentioned in the first week they sold more than 100 or something. So meaning a lot of experimental groups are falling. And only after 7 months, very tense month, we are worried that nobody can reproduce our data, and then it can cause a significant issue, right? Nowadays, in particular, these issues around room temperature superconductors, we are extremely worried. Okay, so luckily after 7 months, a group in Singapore, they posted one paper on arXiv reproducing our data. All right, so this was also again the WeChat circle that I posted. Okay, so that was the first story that you need to think big and dream big and to work something important. Okay, the next one it really goes back. It has probably a little thing to do with research, but I do want to share with you because the central, let's say, theme of my today's talk is about the details, right? So this goes back to how before my entrance to university or undergrad. So I was lucky because it was the first year that Chinese universities, they're allowed to recruit students and to set up exams by themselves before the general entrance exam. Okay, so I got interviewed by Zhejiang University. Okay, so they put up three, I think, a test: one mathematics, physics, and English. All right, so I was very good at mathematics and physics. Okay, so the physics test has 4 pages, questions. All right, so 1 hour for exam time. I only spent half an hour to finish everything. Right, the rest of half an hour I was looking around, like why people are still working on this. And after that, immediately after that, I talked to my classmates. I said there were 3 physical constants listed at the beginning of the exam, but I only used 1. The other 2, no use at all. They said, you must have missed something because all of 3 are needed. Okay, I realized that for the 2 papers, I only worked only the first page, all right? The time matches. Okay, so I said, okay, I'm dead. I have no chance, right, to get interviewed. It was the written part, right? However, later in the afternoon, I got interviewed, although being the last one to get interviewed, okay? And later on, I was admitted to Zhejiang University, as you can see on my CV. So the person who was in charge of the interview actually told other students that Denver was the only one came in and bowed, okay, to show politeness to people. Actually, that was the killing one, which in the end won me a great opportunity to get into Zhejiang University. All right. So I think details matters. If you care about them, try to start from your everyday life, I would say. Okay, sorry, I should have bring this moments ago. All right, so small things can kill you. So this is a kind of story which is unrelated to research, but related to what I would like to tell you. And the second story that goes back to my undergraduate study. I was always enthusiastic about research. So usually students take a so-called student research training program for 1 year. I took 2, working on different systems. So this was the first one. The first one was on hydrogen storage for batteries. So you can see that there were 2 papers out from the research. I was the 3rd author as an undergrad. And I found actually that I was working on nickel already at the time, right? So this is probably the linkage point I would like to tell, right? Surprisingly, I already knew nickel. I already had some connection with the nickel all the way from undergrad research, okay? What's worth mentioning is that even up to now, I'm doing some electrochemistry or chemistry stuff. The knowledge that I learned about electrochemistry actually dated back to the undergrad research program, right? In the second year, I moved to a completely different area about making dielectric ceramics. So particular to my group, The skills that I learned about making ceramics, making targets, are actually from my undergrad study. So very useful. And the third story, and which is the last story I would like to tell related to my MPhil and PhD study. So during my MPhil study, so this was taken in Ocean Park, super happy, even more happy than these guys. And this is a picture I took during my PhD defense, right? But actually, I want to tell you that this does not happen very naturally. I had a up and downs during my PhD time, right? Actually, it goes with hesitation, strong motivation of moving to industry because it's too fundamental, got no paper published during this time, even entrepreneurship, all right? So actually, I registered a company in Hong Kong at the time. I fly all the way from Europe to Hong Kong to register a small company in Science Park, all right? But later on, I still decided to move on with research. One of the reasons is that I built up connections already with very famous scientists in the field. Okay, it is really a shame to drop completely all of that. And one killing factor is that one expected Material Research Society conference in the US, because my advisor got an invitation to present, but he had some problem with his back. He couldn't travel a long distance. Instead, he asked one of my colleagues whether he wanted to go, but my colleague said, no, I'm going to take a vacation. So I'm not going, right? So my advisor, I'm a junior student at the time. I was a junior student, still junior student at the time. So my advisor asking me, well, Denver, you want to go? I said, yes, why not? It's San Francisco, right? Gold City. Why not? Okay, I went there and I realized it was a very nasty session on superconductivity. All the big sharks were there. The session ends at 12. They could argue until 1 o'clock. Yeah, still going on. So I was quite afraid that I was not able to give a very good talk, but I survived. Okay, I got the chair of the session was Paul Chu, the president of HKUST, discoverer of a YBCO material. He shook my hand. He said, your English is good. Yeah, so I did the job very well. And almost right after the session, I got an email from an advisor. He said, I heard that you did pretty well. Well, he has years, around me. And he knew that I did a very good job. So that was I think, a turning point. I asked myself, if I could survive such a nasty session, right, I could survive academia or research life, right? So that was the turning point for me. Okay, so I think I'm running out of time. So I try to summarize with my very limited language. So try to show you again what are the ghosts I believe in all these stories, such as some hints, flash of the insights. Actually, I want to mention that actually the first sample that I decided to grow turned out to be superconducting. So maybe that's the whole reason that it took 8 months to reproduce it. So it was really by chance or by luck that I decided to work on this particular material. And the first sample after I decided to work on it was superconducting. So actually, at the time, my advisor already decided to drop the project. Okay, so he said, "There's no hope. We've been working on this for years. All right, just drop it." I said, "Just let me give one more try on a different material system." Very luckily, that was superconducting. All right, so nickel. I've been working with nickel for many years. Electrochemistry, knowledge accumulation, unexpected opportunities such as presenting in a big conference, which gave me a second thought about research. All right. So, I was very sloppy during my exam or tests, although they supposed me very good at physics and mathematics. I did pretty bad in the physics test because I missed the questions. But I was because of small details that became a life-changing event. All right, so some good qualities or characters, I guess, could be motivation for everyone in this audience. So you need to be persevering, think bold, be active, innocent, confront challenges, stay true, stay pure to yourself, details, etc. All right, so as one last slide, maybe some things that you can think upon and take back home. How are you going to become an excellent scientist if you decide to do so? I listed a few characters again. The first one, be king, be on top, go to the top group, work with the best scientists, right? They can have a significant influence on your working attitude, working philosophy, research philosophy, etc. Okay, self-reflective. You need to take a pulse, reflect yourself, do a little report to yourself. What did I do today? Okay, and what I'm going to do in next few years. And be ambitious. So here it's a little difficult to see. You are naturally ambitious and will make a name for yourself. All right, so just believe that. Try to be ambitious, try to be bold. And as Tiger students, most of you, so we need to be courageous. Right? You need to learn a hug with Tiger, really to target at difficult problems. And be patient. You need to learn or how to walk alone, right? To work on some projects which probably people already dropped. People don't think it's feasible anymore. As long as you believe there's still, value or worth, there will be a period of time that you feel very alone. Okay, and this I like most. This is a poster that I saw in Europe, right? Hokusai with Trevi in Italy, in Rome. So everybody sitting here, I guess we all have the character that we should have a very open mind, but we're born in Asia, most of us are Asian. So we have some certain characters. So that's the reason I brought about this story, that so far, most of the groups which can reproduce a nucleus superconductivity are based in China, actually based in Asia. The first group is in Singapore, right? If you see the names on the papers, they're all Chinese. Yeah. So there's something about us. So you need to believe in yourself and try to combine these two together. And then be a little artistic. So you need to be ideal, right? So these are two paintings that I like most in Phoenix. When I visited there during an MRISEC conference, still hang in my office, right? I like the simple combination of the shapes, lines, etc., and they are very harmonious. Okay. And last, if with all of these, what can you achieve? You can actually make your boss cook for you. All right. Remember, details matter. Okay. Okay, so the last slide, something about Department of Physics. So we recently made a very short silent video to introduce our department. And with that, thank you very much for your attention. I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. That's one of the most astonishing talks that I have attended recently. And I'm sure that you and myself have shared the excitement that Dr. Lee has experienced in the discovery of all these very interesting superconducting material. So the floor is open for questions. Do you have any questions for Dr. Lee?
Actually, your lecture is very nice and your English also very good, because I can clearly remember my first lecture I can understand in CTU is your lecture. Yeah, so
thank you. Maybe I only speak very simple words.
yeah, so it's very understandable. So I have one question for in my point, and so how to publish a paper before you have the great works, even you are in the second years of third year, even the final year of PhD.
You mean
Yeah,
your question is how to publish a good work?
Yeah, I guess you mentioned in your lecture just now.
Okay, how to publish a good work?
Yeah, good one.
This is a very
Simple
very
question,
interesting
right?
simple question. Of course, you need to work your paper based on what you have, right? You need to have good data, results, right? Something either as expected or unexpected, but they have to be very high quality, right? So I think one of the key things I could share maybe is that I think most of students would take the attitude of spending a lot of time in the lab, if you're an experimentalist, without thinking. All right. So actually, good papers come from how you view the problem. Every time you need to see the problem, same kind of problem, same set of data from 30,000 feet view, right? So you need to extract yourself from the data a little bit and go back to the original idea. All right. So that will make the story appealing, or that would make your paper outstanding. Okay. So apart from getting new data, good results, I think a tip would be always try to look at your data or your research from a bigger picture point of view, right? Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Over there. Hi.
Actually, it is really touching about the concept of getting to detail. Actually, that's also my key value in the future for scientific research. I actually think that your undergraduate background is actually material science and engineering, and so do I. And actually, I'm also willing to do research in physics in the future, in fact. But actually, can I say that about me is that actually I want to go to details about physics. And currently, I follow the research on simulations, and it's about physical theoretical things. But actually, to go further for scientific research, the experimental part is also very crucial, as you have mentioned about your success stories. So I wonder if I should try on the experiment part in undergraduate, and what is the key skills that's needed for further research beyond theories. So that's my question.
Very good question. Even you are determined to become a theorist, at undergraduate level, I would encourage you to try everything, right? So one of the key points I would like to mention was that despite that you felt, oh, maybe one day I became a theorist, all the experimental skills just will fade away, right? Actually, there's always something that you found useful. That would change your mindset. So yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, can I add more? Actually, I do confuse a thing. Is that I'm more interested in theories, but for material science background, maybe experimental things they may get better future. So I wonder if I try on material science in the future is more suitable for me, or change the path to physics and compete the physical background undergraduates.
Yeah, some people might not agree with that point about being an experimentalist has a better future. If you're talking about making big papers, the reality probably yes, but the theorists start to collaborate a lot with experimentalists in order to put their names there, right? Well, I shouldn't say that, but I still think the ultimate value of research does not depend on whether you're an experimentalist or theory. Okay, so if you know about physics, there are many Nobel Prizes awarded to theorists, probably even more than experimentalists, right? Being an experimentalist is painful because you need to be in the lab 7/24 almost, right? Being a theorist is always in the sky, right? You can do research everywhere. So think about that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, over here, please. Microphone, please.
Yeah, thanks for your sharing. Your story really cheered me up and engaged the people who want to engage the people who want to engage the research. I'm wondering, you had a very many colorful research experience in the different continents, China, Hong Kong, Europe, and USA. Mm-hmm. How did this experience or the local culture influence your research spirit?
Yes. Good. Yeah. Because of time, I didn't really touch upon this point. Thank you for the question. Maybe I started with a bad thing. All right. So Switzerland is a very relaxing country. So that's one of the reasons it took me 5.5 years to finish my PhD because, I thought I'd already become a Swiss. All right. That's the thing that you can certainly see. Let's influence of culture, local culture on different researchers. For example, if you talk to a person who only stayed in U.S., right, did his PhD there, postdoc there, you will feel different to a person who actually did their graduate study in Europe, for example, right? So the good thing about actually going to different places, indeed, was that I could experience different cultures. Like I learned what is the original, original motivation for research. Because the modern research started from Europe. So a lot of professors and research groups in Europe nowadays still like they do their research in a manner such as they enjoy the research. Okay, they enjoy discussions. They care very little about publication, right? So particularly for my major, for physics, I think this is very important. Okay, although I had some really downtime because I didn't have any publication for a quite long time, but later on I found out, okay, this is actually a good thing. That you only pick up important issues or questions or problems to work on. Okay, so maybe a little diverted to your question, but anyway, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any other questions from the floor? If there's none, can I ask just one final question? Sure. If you would like to share only one thing to our Tiger students or students in general at CTU about your accomplishment, so far, what would it be?
Accomplishment, I think I dare not to share, but maybe one thing that I always work to perfection, okay, to everything. This is probably a lesson I learned from my father. He mentioned in your life, pretty long time, you never know which person or which thing is going to be very useful for you, all right? So the best attitude would be to try to work to perfection for everything, okay? And be it giving a talk, writing a proposal, talking to an expert, I always try to get prepared in advance, right? So this causes some issues with people working around me. So because I always try to be the last minute and try to be perfect, but I do enjoy and benefit a lot from that. So try to be perfect, I would say, on everything. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks very much. Would you please join me in thanking Dr. Lee for this exciting talk?
Thank you.